I don't hate it.
After Dallas, though, we get to, well, we'll skip the Warriors and go right to the Houston. No, we're up to the Golden State Warriors, who, as I informed you via text message before we hopped on here, they are 27th in points scored per possession over basically the past 2 months. That is bad, just for anyone who's curious, because there are only 30 teams in the league. What should they be doing?
Hold. And I will admit, though, that still they might be the team best positioned to go get, almost whatever they want, because they've got all the matching salary, which is just Wiggins basically, but they've got guys that are cheap and young, and Poole, Kuminga, Wiseman, Moses Moody. I don't know if the league at large really cares about Moody yet, or is aware that he scores like 35 points a night in the G League and looks incredible and then can't do anything in the NBA. But they have all this ammo. I just don't see it. You could talk me into, like, you could twist my arm on a Wiseman for Turner, like that being the skeleton of a deal. But otherwise, but the thing is, they're not going to do anything. Like, that's just, they have been firm from the start across the board. Nothing is going to happen. And I sort of get it. I mean, there are $1 bajillion in the tax and they're never coming out of it. But all these cheap guys they've got that might have value in a trade if you were trying to like cut salary or whatever, like, Gary Payton II and Porter Jr. and, even Looney is someone that I think would have value around the league. He only makes $5 million. Like, but all those guys matter, and all those guys are more valuable to the Warriors than they are to another team. So it's a hold, and it's like a hold. They've just decided to hold. So I don't know. I would love to hear if you think there's a likelihood that they go one way or the other. I mean, they're not going to sell. So I mean,
Imagine.
what's your, they're like, we don't have it this year. Let's have another gap year.
They're hold by process of elimination to me, because I think they probably should be more aggressive than they're willing to be. That also presumes there's that opportunity out there. And while I'm not as choosy as you when it comes to who they would move those assets for, Pascal Siakam is not available. Miles Turner might be available, but he's injured. And there are people who believe that he wouldn't be a part of Golden State's closing lineups. I would reject that notion just because he can easily play with Draymond Green, and it's not like someone who's super slow footed. So that would never work. I would think people have mentioned Sabonis for them. He'd be interesting offensively, but he would be the guy who's less likely to be in a closing lineup. That's not the player I'm going in on. I would be open to those scenarios more than the Warriors are. However, their issue is they're only built for a seismic trade. So Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, they're just not going anywhere. You have Andrew Wiggins, but he's making $31.6 million. Then all of a sudden, your fifth highest paid player is James Wiseman, who is not only, like, his sophomore year is gone. His first year are a wash. So his trade value is super low, and you do have top 2 pick equity invested in him. So you're not moving him in just some afterthought deal. Kuminga is your 6th highest paid player, who you just drafted, who you probably have the highest hopes for moving forward. At least that's where I'm at. I know some people are probably a little bit higher on Jordan Poole, maybe, or even Wiseman. After that, okay, Looney at $5.2 million. People have mentioned how the Warriors need a big. You're not moving big for big unless it's Wiseman, because Wiseman's not playing. Looney's played in every game this season, I believe, so he's been healthier than normal. And then after that, it's just like, okay, Moody, he's your 8th highest paid player at $3.6 million. What are you? He could be a sweetener as part of a blockbuster, but you're not just going to trade him for someone. And then after that, no one else makes more than Jordan Poole, who's at $2.2 million. And when you look at Poole and Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton II, those are guys who are providing far more bang for their buck than their salary. We know they're not just going to trade Andre Iguodala. He's on a minimum deal. Why would you do that? I think if I had to choose someone who's most likely to get traded, I'd probably just say Bielitsa, because maybe they want to trade the roster spot. But I would be floored if they do anything splashy at the deadline, mostly because it represents sort of an about face in philosophy, but also because then there would be someone who's available for them to think that way. And I haven't seen that player. It was also, we had a conversation about Jaylen Brown. Neither of us thought he was available, and he's not. But I said he'd be interesting for the Warriors. And you're like, no, he wouldn't. You can't trade for him. And so then I brought up LeBron, and you were like, no, can't trade for him.
No. And then you said Michael Jordan, age 28. And I was like, no, forget it.
We have high hopes for Moses Moody around these parts. So, but like Pascal Siakam is the guy that I called like the ideal acquisition for them leading in to or around the meat and potatoes of the offseason. It's clear the Raptors are going to buy now, or at least not going to sell. So I think they're justified in holding Serve, even though I would be more open to like, oh, does it really only cost Wiseman? And then, okay, yeah, you have to send out more salary, but Wiseman and then like nothing, like we're getting to keep Kuminga and we're still getting Turner. Like that's something I would still consider.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of I was just thinking about this today, and it's very half baked, but it's sort of it's a push to go more towards where you're leaning of they should really be more aggressive than they're being, which is to say that like I don't think Jordan Poole is going to sign his next contract with the Warriors because he's going to be too expensive. I don't think you're very likely to have another year or another offseason where you hit on so many minimums, which is what they're going to have to do to sort of continue to populate this roster. And so the fact that they have Poole at such a low salary, the fact that they're getting a very good Wiggins, like Wiggins, I think is playing like at least a $22-24 million guy right now.
He's not an all-star, but he's been good. And
he's been very good. He's not
on offense, I think.
Yeah. So you're getting good Wiggins. You hit on Porter. You sort of hit on Bielitsa, but he's been kind of checked out for a while. You've got you've got your young guys. So I just like you would never think this way as an organization or as a general manager, but you almost have to just for a second say like, what are the odds we get it this right again next year? Like probably not great. So if you're going to push, then maybe now is the time. And maybe another reason is like seeing more of Wiseman for suitors around the league might not be a good thing. Like the mystery might still be like an asset. So because if he comes back and he still can't catch the ball and now he's 2 years, it's just like it could get worse. Like there's always that in terms of his value. So I fully acknowledge the wisdom in like at least looking at being a buyer. But again, like you said, what's out there? Like we're going to keep coming back to this. Like what is out there to justify them swinging big?
And even like let's say Jaylen Brown was available. Jaylen Brown doesn't really help you anchor the non-Steph minutes or improve your shot creation.
Yeah,
it's the same. It's definitely the same with Miles Turner. Siakam again is a name that would. So that's also where the limit is. Their defense has been so good this year, and they need a very specific, sought after, high end asset on the other end that it makes it difficult. I would ask though, how concerned are you about them? Just given the offensive struggles, Steph's slump, and then now you have Clay with the knee problem flaring up, and Draymond Green is dealing with the back and calf issue, which they seem optimistic on, but like I haven't seen a timetable for his return either.
I'm the Draymond thing is by far the most concerning to me because this team is just like, it's not the same as not having Steph, but it's the next worst thing. I mean, it's certainly like what you're seeing a lot of is how valuable he is offensively. And like the defense is a given, but their whole offense just functions on understanding reads and guys that have played together for a long time and know what to do and where to be. And like the ones that fall a little short on that, Draymond like coaxes them into the places they're supposed to be and he moves the ball the way that Steve Kerr wants it moved and like he's super valuable offensively, which is nuts for a guy that just doesn't get guarded basically.
He is shooting career high on twos in the paint, but outside the restricted area. So
he's even more valuable then.
More space. What you're saying.
Yeah, that's the only source of concern because I still think like just they're deep. They have upside if Kuminga continues to improve. Wiseman, I don't expect anything from. I think Thompson, assuming this knee soreness that he's having is not a big issue, is going to get better and stop shooting 47 times every 15 minutes he plays. Like I think there's upside. I think the Steph's thing, I'm not going to worry about a Steph Curry shooting slump until it lasts like 2 full years. At this point, he's got the benefit of the doubt from me. And I think Anthony Slater reported that like he's got issues with both hands, or like that. Like it seems like an injury thing that he's just playing through because Draymond's not there. So my concern level is very low, but it would be like a 10 if you said Draymond might be out for 2 months or something.
Are any of their guys on minimum contracts or close to them going to be back next year? I'm looking, and I'm going to say maybe Iguodala.
That's the thing. Like, if you're someone like Porter, I think part of the reason you came here is to rehab your value, and like
He's gone.
Mission
I,
accomplished, right? Like
I guess
he
maybe they
could
could
get.
use the mini MLE on him, but that presumes
Is
they'll
that
use the
enough?
mini MLE. Yeah, is that enough? It's also a fair point.
Yeah, I think Looney will be back just because he seems like a lifer, and he's not on a minimum, but he's going to be a
Yeah.
free agent. I mean, Toscano-Anderson, maybe. I think he's restricted.
I don't see him. Steve Kerr doesn't seem to like him very much, though.
I think he's a guy that Kerr knows he can leave stranded on the bench for a long time, and it's not going to cause a problem. And that's not true of maybe some of the other guys that are candidates for that. But like Damian Lee's another one. He's going to be a free agent. I mean, I could see someone giving Gary Payton II. Oh my God, yeah, that guy. He's gonna get. Well, that's the thing. He's such a niche guy that like Porter will probably get more than him, but they're both gonna make way more than the minimum, right? Like and the Warriors sort of every dollar above the minimum for them is like $10 million in tax. So it's gonna be that's the thing. They're gonna have to hit again in free agency, assuming all these guys are gone because they've played themselves into bigger contracts that the Warriors can't give them.
And we're in agreement that Bielitsa is the most likely to be moved. I guess you could maybe say JTA, but
I think Bielitsa has fallen out of favor a little bit, and deservedly so. He's just not been the same guy. He looked like incredible the first month of the season, and it's not been there. He's not been the same guy.